Oh, how we doing? Oh, you're a lively crowd. Lively crowd. Like I said, my name's Brandon Valentine. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Yes, my parents are morons. I mean Mormons. Mormons. Yeah, sorry. I always get those a little mixed up. Being the youngest of 6 kids was always interesting growing up. My parents always told me that, when I turned 18, they were kicking everybody out. And I'm like, well, why do they get a fucking stay? I turned 18, my parents sold the house, bought a motor home, and drove away. Good luck living with us if you can't find us. We're still looking. We'll find them someday. We will. The other part that was always interesting. Being the youngest, there was a huge age gap. My oldest brother was a senior in high school when I was born. Yeah, huge age gap. There was always rumors that he had 2 little girls that were put up for adoption before I was even born. Do you know how fucked up that makes dating? Yeah, you start dating a girl, she's like, I'm adopted. Fuck. Can you be the creepy uncle if you don't know you're the uncle? I've always wondered this one. Oh, worst part is I did that joke one time and my niece was in the crowd. She's like, are you talking about my dad? No. I think I just let out a family secret I wasn't supposed to. Then I had another sister that lived with us for years with her 2 little kids when I was a teenager. And my nephew one day was about 3 or 4 years old. And he comes walking out of my parents' bedroom one day with a life-size chocolate penis. Yeah, he didn't know what it was. He just knew it was chocolate. So, of course, he's not on the head of that thing like a rabbit going after a carrot. He's just like, arr, arr, just going for it. My dad's looking at me like, get it away from him. I'm like, no. 1, I don't know why you have a chocolate penis. 2, I don't know what you've been doing with it. The kid can keep it. I ain't going near that. I have a nephew that'll never come to a show because that actually happened. He's like, you'll point me out. Yeah, I will. That's the one. Oh, man. Is there any married couples in the house? Yeah. A few married couples. I've been married 21 years. This year will be 22 years. 22 years. One thing that's always funny is when people always talk about marriage, and we hear about this all the time, and I wrote this joke when I first, started doing comedy about, how sex changes during marriage. It's one of those things they always talk about. Like when you first get married, you do it anywhere, everywhere. It's like that honeymoon sex. You got 2 minutes, you're going for it. But after a few years, you get into what they call ABC sex. Anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas. And then you get into it. My grandpa always called it, hallway sex. It's when you pass each other in the hallway. Fuck you, I'm going to go jerk off in the shower. And it was really bad. When I first wrote that joke, I thought it was hilarious. But I've been married for 21 years now. Now it's reality. It's not so funny to me anymore. But the other part about that, too, that also changes, that there's other things that change in marriage. Like, the meaning of words, Like when you say I love you when you first get married, you really mean it. When you're 22 years in, you're like, I love you means don't smother me in my sleep. When you have that whole thing, let's make love, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make love to you like you've never had before. 22 years in, let's make love is hurry up, I got shit to do. Oh, but the other thing that changes too is it's really not the sex, it's the masturbation that changes. It's really what changes. When we first got married, you didn't really have to do it that much because, you were still doing the honeymoon sex. You would do it whenever you had. You get a few years into it, the normal ones, the stranger, all those, they don't work anymore. You have to get a little more tricky, a little more kinky on yourself. So I've been working on one that I call the secret squirrel. It's where I jerk off in bed and try not to wake her up. I've been working on the super secret squirrel. It's where I use her hand. Yeah. She asks me all the time, have you tried that? Have you woke up with a sticky hand yet? Obviously not, or I'm really good at cleanup. She'll never know. Oh, man. So how many parents we got? A few? I've got a few kids myself. In fact, actually, I just became a grandparent. Yeah, I had kids young. I've had all those people tell you, the difference between having young or old. I had them young. I'm pretty sure being that young, I fucked up the first two. But that's why you have the first ones, right? They're practice. So I had them young. But so the fun part with kids is you always look at your kids now, and I mean, the question I always have for parents, what do we do to our kids? Like I said, I'm pretty sure I fucked up the first two, maybe the first three. There's 4 of them. The last one, it's still questionable. But when we were kids, you had to be the best of the best at everything. And now, there's a big joke. You get a trophy for showing up, all that stuff. There's a certain schools you can't use red ink because it gives a bad feeling to the child. Well, you were wrong, dipshit. But the hard part with a lot of that is like I coached my daughter's baseball team for years. And the hardest part as a coach was you had to bring up at the end of the year, you had to bring up each kid and talk about why you loved having them on the team and why they were so great and give them that trophy. You know how hard that was with that one kid? That one kid that just sucked all season long. Especially when it was your kid. Oh, man. And then people who don't have kids always tell you that when I have kids, I'm going to treat them all the exact same. Now, anybody who has multiple kids, you can't. They're all different. You have to treat them differently. And the other thing you run into, too, is as you have kids, you kind of change how you do, how you treat them. Like my oldest came to me a couple of years ago and says, Dad, I want to go to homecoming. No. Fuck no. I remember what I did at homecoming. I drank. I did drugs. I had sex. Then I had to go pick up my date. This is not the kind of stuff I want my kids involved in. But then a couple years later, my youngest comes to me and says, Dad, I want to go to homecoming. Great, here's $100. Bring some blowback for Dad. Changes as you have kids. I was the youngest of 6. When I asked my dad to go to homecoming, I'm like, can I go to homecoming? He just looked at me and said, who the fuck are you? Oh, man. Kids are great. They really are. They are. They're good. Oh. The other thing that's always fun, COVID. We've gone through COVID, all that. When COVID started, a lot of people gained weight. I actually did the opposite. I lost a bunch of weight during COVID. I actually dropped 100 pounds during COVID. I've gained a little bit back because I kind of slacked off a little bit. But I lost 100 pounds during COVID. Now, the one thing you always run into when you lose weight, people always ask you why. They have to know why, and you're like, everyone's always got an excuse, family, health, poverty, whatever. For me, when they're asking me, they're like, what made you decide to lose weight? Why did you lose weight? I pulled a muscle wiping my own ass. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sitting there, you kind of turn, there's a lot of blubber in the way, it didn't really get, all of a sudden it's like, oh, damn it. Now, you run into a whole problem when this happens, because there's a whole thought process that goes through your head. You're like, well, I got to fix this. So how do I deal with this? I can't quite turn because, I'm like, I can ask the wife for help, but I'm pretty sure that's not in the marriage vows. I'm sure that's not covered under sickness and health. Excuse me, I got so fat I can't wipe my own ass. I just don't think that's covered there. And I'm pretty sure if I asked, it'd be like, sure, here, you can wipe. Here's the divorce papers. Use those. Because this is where I draw the line. And it's, oh man. So I decided, what's the best way to deal with this? I could take a shower, but I'm fat. I'm gonna have to take a shower every time I poop. I eat a lot, I poop a lot. So I went with the next best. I got a bidet. Yeah, so I get the bidet and I'm like, this is a great idea. I'm gonna use that. But I'm cheap, so I didn't get the expensive one. So now I have a wet butthole, but I don't have the dryer. So I'm like, well, how do I deal with this? It's clean, but now it's swampy. Like, I had no hair dryer, so I'm out there doing dryer yoga. You ever smell burnt taint? It's kind of like Tacoma on a hot day. It's not a good thing. So then I decided, okay, what am I going to do about this? Finally, I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to deal with it and deal with the fact that I have a wet butthole. So I go around and I have a little wet spot. People would ask me about it, and I didn't want to explain it, so I ran away. And that's how I lost 100 pounds. All right, thank you guys. That's been my time. Have a great night.